What if I told you that your silence could pack more punch than the sharpest comeback? That pulling back and saying absolutely nothing might just be your ace in the hole? Most men fail to realize the sheer power of walking away, not as an act of surrender, but as a calculated maneuver. When you stop talking to a woman, her reaction will often speak louder than her words ever could. Now, let's face it, the idea of going silent terrifies most men. They think it screams weakness or signals a loss of control. But here's the blunt truth. Chasing, pleading, or explaining yourself only weakens your position. Women aren't attracted to men who constantly seek validation. They're drawn to men who know their worth, men who hold their ground even when faced with rejection. The moment you stop engaging, something fascinating happens. The dynamic shifts. A woman, even if she pretends not to, will notice. Her thoughts spiral. Why isn't he calling? Did he lose interest? Is he seeing someone else? Suddenly, the roles are reversed. The man she felt secure, ignoring becomes the one she can't stop thinking about. But here's where things get interesting. Not every woman reacts the same way when you go silent. Some will chase you relentlessly, their curiosity and need for validation driving them to seek your attention. Others, however, will test your boundaries, trying to regain the upper hand. And then, there are those who simply won't care at all. These are the women who never valued you to begin with, and recognizing this is critical. Why waste your energy on someone who's just a distraction? So, what's the lesson here? Silence is not the end of the road. It's the beginning of a new game, one where you finally take the lead. In this video, we'll explore the psychology behind a woman's reaction to your silence. You'll uncover the subtle signs that she's feeling your absence, understand the motivations behind her behavior, and learn how to leverage this knowledge to maintain your power. If you've ever found yourself stuck in the exhausting cycle of chasing someone who keeps pulling away, consider this your wake-up call. Silence isn't weakness, it's strategy. It forces her to reassess your value, and more importantly, hers. The moment you stop talking, something fascinating occurs. She starts questioning herself. If she's used to you always being available, always texting first, always trying to patch things up, your absence becomes deafening. Suddenly, the attention she once took for granted feels like a necessity. Why? Simple human psychology. We're wired to crave validation, and when it's withheld, it becomes all the more desirable. Silence flips the script. Instead of chasing her, you're now the one being pursued. And if she doesn't pursue, then congratulations. You've just weeded out someone who wasn't worth your time anyway. So, gentlemen, take note. Silence isn't just golden, it's magnetic. Use it wisely. When you constantly shower a woman with attention and reassurance, it's like handing her a cozy blanket of security. She feels warm and safe, almost as if your affection is a given. But the moment you take that blanket away, a chill of uncertainty sets in. Women, just like anyone else, crave certainty. They want to feel valued, desired, and admired. So, when you step back, you create a vacuum, and that absence triggers something surprising. The chase. At first, it's subtle. She might suddenly reply faster to your social media posts, laugh a little too enthusiastically at your jokes, or casually drop inside references to rekindle a connection. But as time passes, her actions might become more direct. She could reach out to ask why you've gone quiet, or bring up something seemingly trivial just to get your attention. These small gestures are her way of seeking the validation that your silence has denied her. Here's the kicker. This isn't just about her missing your texts or calls. It's about her need to feel like she still matters to you. For many women, validation is like a mirror. It reflects their value in someone else's eyes. When you stop being that mirror, she starts chasing her own reflection. Picture this. A man has a routine of calling his girlfriend every evening to check in. Then, one day, he doesn't call. Instead, he focuses on himself and goes radio silent. At first, she assumes he's busy. But by day 2 or 3, questions creep in. Why isn't he calling? Did I do something wrong? Is he losing interest? Suddenly, she's the one texting him, asking if everything's okay, or finding excuses to reconnect. This shift in behavior is powerful. It rebalances the dynamic and creates a void that she's eager to fill. Here's the secret. You don't rush to fill that void for her. You maintain your silence, giving her the space to reflect on what your presence means to her. This isn't about being manipulative or cold. It's about understanding the power of space and allowing her actions to reveal her intentions. When she chases you, it's not just about regaining validation. It's about realizing she values you more than she thought. But not every woman will simply start chasing. Some will test your boundaries in an attempt to regain control. This isn't always a deliberate act. It's often driven by her discomfort with the imbalance your silence has created. By going silent, you've disrupted the familiar dynamic, leaving her unsure of where she stands. That uncertainty can manifest in unexpected ways. Boundary testing usually starts subtly. She might send teasing or vague messages like, "I guess you're too busy for me now," or, "Wow, someone's gone quiet." These comments are designed to poke at you, to see if they can elicit a reaction. It's her way of regaining the upper hand. The trick is not to fall for it. Responding to these provocations reinstates the balance she's trying to reclaim. Instead, stay calm and let her words hang in the air. Your silence, once again, speaks volumes. It shows you're not easily rattled and that your worth doesn't hinge on her approval. In the end, mastering the art of silence isn't about playing games. It's about understanding human psychology. It's about knowing when to step back, letting her actions reveal her true feelings, and maintaining your composure while she does so. By doing this, you remain in control, confident and completely irresistible. If you fall back into your old patterns of chasing her, she'll feel like a queen perched on her throne, still in control of the kingdom. The goal here isn't just to test your silence, it's to break it. Her attempts to get you talking might start off subtle, like a gentle poke to the ribs. But if that doesn't work, get ready for the fireworks. She might start dropping hints about other men or post cryptic captions on social media, something like "living my best life," paired with a photo of her holding a drink and laughing too hard at nothing. The message is loud and clear. I'm still desirable and you're missing out. But here's the real kicker. None of this is actually about those other men or those perfectly staged photos. It's about you. She's waiting to see if you'll crack, if you'll fold under the pressure and send her that desperate text she's expecting. For instance, imagine you're dating someone who's used to you responding within seconds of her texts. Then one day, you decide to take a step back and focus on yourself. She sends a playful, "Did you lose your phone?" text. When that doesn't work, she ups the ante with something sharper, like, "Guess I'll just hang out with someone who actually has time for me." This is where most men stumble. They take the bait. they rush to explain themselves or defend their actions, thinking it'll smooth things over. But here's the truth. Responding only proves that her tactics worked and that she's still calling the shots. Don't let the lure of the trap fool you. Instead, hold your ground. When you don't react to her provocations, it forces her to sit with her own behavior. She starts to see that boundary pushing won't get the response she's fishing for. In that moment, she's faced with two choices: respect your newfound independence, or reveal that her intentions weren't genuine in the first place. The lesson here is as simple as it is profound. When a woman tests your boundaries, it's not a demonstration of her strength, but her insecurity. By staying calm, composed, and unbothered, you show her that you're a man who values himself enough not to play these games. And that, my friend, is what earns real respect. Now, here's the twist. She might act like she doesn't care at all, but secretly, she's overthinking every move. This is one of the most common and infuriating reactions you'll encounter when you go silent. She'll put on a performance of indifference, acting like your absence is just a blip on her radar. But beneath the surface, her mind is working overtime, dissecting every moment and wondering why you pulled away. This behavior is a classic defense mechanism. Women don't like to appear vulnerable, especially when they feel like the power dynamic is shifting out of their favor. So instead of showing how much your silence bothers her, she'll wear a mask of detachment. She'll act distant, pretend she's fine without you, and try to convince herself and you that your absence doesn't matter. But here's where it gets interesting. Deep down, she's doing exactly what you're doing, thinking about what's really going on and why the balance has shifted. And while she's busy overanalyzing, your silence speaks volumes, reminding her that she's not the one pulling the strings anymore. While she's pretending not to care, rest assured, she's hyper-aware of everything you do. Every post you share, every time you're spotted out with someone else, or even if you leave her on read for a few hours, it's all meticulously catalogued in her mental journal. She's analyzing every move like a detective piecing together a crime scene, overthinking details that would make a sane person chuckle. This relentless overthinking is the clearest sign that your silence is working its magic. You've given her space to reflect, but instead of serenity, she's drowning in questions. Why hasn't he called? Did he meet someone new? Is he losing interest, or is this some twisted test? These thoughts, though rarely spoken aloud, consume her emotions and energy. Why does she act like she doesn't care then? Simple. Vulnerability is often seen as weakness. Many women are conditioned to mask their feelings, to avoid appearing desperate or clingy. So instead of showing her true emotions, she hides behind a facade of indifference. But here's the kicker. The harder she tries to act unaffected, the more obvious it becomes that she's anything but. She's thinking about you a lot, maybe even more than she'd like to admit. Your silence has upended her carefully balanced world, turning it into a puzzle she can't quite solve. Each time she tries to rationalize your behavior, she ends up with even more questions. This is the power of silence. No dramatic speeches, no grand gestures, just the absence of your presence doing all the heavy lifting. She might act aloof or pretend she's entirely unbothered, but deep down, it's a game of emotional Jenga, and your silence has pulled out the most critical block. She's wondering, overthinking, and second-guessing herself into oblivion. By holding your ground, you're forcing her to confront her feelings. And here's where it gets interesting. Eventually, she'll start asking herself the questions that push her to reach out to you. Despite her best efforts to seem unaffected, she'll find herself drawn back into the dynamic. But not every woman will take this route. Some may seek validation elsewhere. Let's face it, when you stop talking to a woman, there's always the possibility she'll look for attention from someone else. This isn't necessarily about replacing you. Often, it's just a way to soothe the ego, bruised by your silence. However, here's the hard truth. If she feels the need to search for validation elsewhere, it's worth examining the dynamics of your connection in the first place. Before you get defensive, let's clear something up. Too many men treat silence like some foolproof, one-size-fits-all tactic. But here's the reality. It's not magic. Silence is powerful, but it's not a guarantee. What it does, though, is reveal the truth. It separates the women who genuinely value you from those who are only looking for easy validation. In the end, staying silent isn't about winning games. It's about understanding who's willing to meet you halfway. It's about clarity, self-respect, and letting the cards fall where they may. If your silence comes across as immature, inconsistent, or straight-up manipulative, don't be surprised if she seeks comfort elsewhere. Women aren't signing up to play a never-ending game of emotional tug-of-war. If you've been stringing her along, failing to provide clarity, or doing the classic disappearing act only to reappear when it suits you, guess what? She's not the problem. You are. Silence, when used wisely, can create space for reflection and meaningful communication. But when it's overused or wielded like a blunt weapon, it drives a wedge between you two and pushes her straight into the arms of someone who actually knows how to value her. This isn't about pointing fingers at men, though. It's about accountability. If you're not offering security, consistency, or mutual respect, what do you expect her to do? Sit around twiddling her thumbs, waiting for breadcrumbs of your attention? Wake up, buddy. On the flip side, if you've been solid, clear, and intentional, and she still seeks validation elsewhere, well, that's on her. Some people are addicted to attention, and they'll chase it wherever they can find it. This behavior is a glaring red flag. A woman who runs to someone else for validation the moment you go quiet isn't someone you should invest your energy into. Here's the advice. Don't fixate solely on her reaction. Focus on your actions too. Be brutally honest with yourself. Are you using silence as a manipulative tactic, or are you genuinely creating space to build something meaningful? If it's the latter, her reaction will tell you everything you need to know about her character and emotional maturity. But don't kid yourself. If she bolts straight into someone else's arms for attention, take it as a wake-up call. Not just about her, but also about the kind of relationship you're choosing to invest in. At the end of the day, you deserve someone who values you for who you are, not someone who requires constant attention to feel worthy. Keep your standards high, and remember, relationships are a two-way street. Make sure you're walking in the right direction. When you stop talking to a woman, there's always a chance she might take a completely different route. She disappears entirely. No texts, no calls, no subtle attempts to grab your attention. It's as if she's vanished into thin air, leaving you scratching your head and wondering if she ever cared at all. This reaction is often misunderstood. On the surface, it might look like she's indifferent or unaffected, but the reality is far more complex. When a woman disappears after you've gone silent, It usually boils down to one of two things. She's either genuinely done, or she's protecting herself. If she's genuinely done, it means she emotionally checked out long before you stopped talking. Your silence didn't create the distance, it simply revealed it. In this case, she was likely waiting for an opportunity to move on, and your lack of communication gave her the green light. Sure, that's a tough pill to swallow, but it's a necessary one. A woman who disappears because she's done wasn't deeply invested to begin with. And let's be honest, that's not someone you want to chase. However, more often than not, her disappearing act isn't about being done. It's about protecting herself. When faced with silence, some women retreat as a defense mechanism. It's their way of shielding their emotions, avoiding vulnerability, or even trying to see if you'll step up and break the silence first. In these moments, her vanishing isn't about indifference. It's about self-preservation. So, before jumping to conclusions, take a step back and assess the situation. If she's gone for good, accept it with grace and move on. But if her disappearance feels more like a test than a farewell, let her actions guide your next steps. Remember, in the end, silence is a tool, not a trap. Use it wisely. It's about regaining control. When a woman feels like she's losing power in a dynamic, her instinct might be to withdraw entirely. Think of it as her version of emotional hide-and-seek, only the stakes are a bit higher than childhood games. Instead of chasing you or showing vulnerability, she removes herself from the equation, hoping to reclaim some sense of control over the situation. Now, let's admit it, this reaction can be deeply frustrating for men. It feels like you're being ignored or worse, discarded. But here's the kicker. Silence in response to silence isn't always indifference. It's often strategy. She's likely pulling back to see if you'll break first. If you reach out, it confirms her disappearing act worked. But if you don't, it forces her to confront the uncomfortable reality of losing you. It's crucial to understand that this reaction doesn't necessarily mean she doesn't care. In fact, it often means the opposite. When someone goes silent, it's usually because they're wrestling with their emotions internally. She's likely weighing her options. Should she stay quiet to protect her pride, or should she risk vulnerability by reaching out for clarity? This inner debate is her emotional tug-of-war. In these moments, patience is your greatest asset. Resist the urge to chase her down or try to fix things. If her disappearance is a test, your lack of reaction will show her that you're not easily manipulated. And if her silence stems from genuine indifference, your restraint will save you from wasting energy on someone who isn't fully invested in you. Either way, you win. The truth about indifference is rarely as simple as it seems. Whether she disappears to protect herself or to test you, your best move is to stay composed. Let her actions reveal her true intentions. Trust that the right person will value your presence without needing to manipulate you into proving it. Now, here's the shocking truth that no one likes to admit. If you're constantly chasing after a woman who seeks validation from others, you're wasting your time. No matter how much emotional energy you pour in, if she's looking for attention elsewhere the moment you pull back, it's not about you. It's about her insecurities. Don't fool yourself into thinking that playing games with silence will magically make her chase you. If she's not willing to invest equally in the relationship, stop settling for being someone's backup plan. Yes, I know this might sting a little, especially if you've been caught up in emotional drama. But here's the thing. Men need to wake up. Stop trying to be someone's emotional roller coaster. The real power in any relationship comes from standing your ground and knowing your worth. If she can't appreciate that, then let her go. You're better off saving your energy for someone who will. So, what's been your experience when a woman sought validation from someone else? Did you fall for it? Or did you recognize your own value and walk away? Share your stories in the comments below. Let's connect, discuss, and learn from each other. After all, life's too short for emotional games. Let's write a better playbook together.